Hello, I'm Bob Harris. Welcome to the Durhamans Educational Video Series. In this video, we will show and demonstrate the latest one and only Tarazi sprayable polished concrete system. All right, it's our last step before spraying Arapido with our Tarazi sprayer. Let's call it priming the system. More importantly, it's checking to make sure that all of our connections are in fact tight. So we have maybe 3 cups of water in the hopper. And to recap what we've talked about in a previous video is make sure the pressure is turned all the way down prior to turning the machine on so it doesn't draw too many amps. So I'm going to turn the machine on. You can hear that. And now that it's running, I'll turn the pressure up. And I'm going to check the spray. So you'll notice the fan. That's the 531 tip. If the tip gets clogged, watch the difference while you're spraying the Arapido. So that would clean it out. I'm looking at all my connections. And everything looks good. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the residual water that's in the hopper gun and go to the next step, which is to mix our Arapido. We're getting ready to mix the Arapido. For starters, what we did is we weighed out 4.6 liters of CP1000 from our 5-gallon bucket right here. The next consideration, we're going to use aqua color. Special gray is the color. It's really up to you, the individual artisan, on how much or how little color. That's where you determine it via sampling prior to your actual installation. This syringe happens to be measurements of cc's or ounces. I'll just simply use ounces for ease of application. And I've dumped the aqua color into a secondary container here. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a 1/2 ounce into the CP1000. So from here, we're ready to dump into this. I'm going to give it a quick spin with our drill to make sure that we have good mixture of color. Once again, 4.6 liters of CP1000. Also, it's a good idea to turn the bucket when the material sits on a pallet or on a shelf. It tends to consolidate, and we want to make sure it's fluffy prior to dumping it in the bucket. All right, anytime you work with cement-based products, it's a good idea to protect yourself from the airborne dust particulate. So I'm going to put a dust mask on. I'm going to give our color a quick spin. From there, I'm going to dump roughly half of the bucket in there. Give it a quick spin on low speed. Now here you want to mix for definitely at least 2 minutes, preferably 3 minutes, to make sure you have a good cohesive mix. And in just a moment, I'm going to grab my margin trowel. I want to scrape the sides of the bucket to make sure all of our dry particulate that's on the side of the bucket, in fact, gets mixed into to our liquid mix here. All right, we've mixed our Arapido for 3 solid minutes, It's a good idea to have a secondary bucket here to make sure you always keep your drill paddle clean. Doesn't take much. Quick spin, and that's all it takes. Make sure that it's not going to dump over. That's the last thing you would want to have is the water spill all over. So now we have our Arapido that's been mixed for 3 minutes. Now if you remember, we said it's really important to always strain the material. So what we're going to do is dump into the strainer roughly half the bucket. Or in this case, we'll go ahead and just dump the whole thing in there, and then we'll only dump a third to half into our hopper. Now, if on an earlier video we talked about all of the components that make up the Duraman Tarazzi spray system with all of the different products and tools, and we talked about the importance of the strainer, and I want to show you why. So during manufacturing, you really can only get so fine, and if you notice here, you see a little bit of particulate, not a lot, but you do see some particulate. And so that's what we don't want to go through our sprayer. So it's super important that you don't skip this step of straining. So in a previous video, we showed priming of the pump, and we purposely didn't clean all the water out of the line. So there's no standing water in our hopper, but there is water from about here through the 40 feet of line. So that's important that you keep that water in there, because when I start spraying into a secondary bucket over here, I'm watching, obviously the water is going to be semi-clear, and then you'll see a viscosity change the moment the Arapido comes through the line. So that's important. That's one of the important reasons for priming the system with water prior to spraying the Arapido. Now I dumped about half of the bucket in here for our demonstration purposes. That should get us by just fine. We previously dumped the mixed Arapido about up into this level here in the hopper, and now what we're going to do is get rid of the water that's in the line in a secondary bucket here until we see the viscosity change, which is the pigmented Arapido. Remember, just to recap guys, the importance of turning the pressure all the way down, starting the pump, and it's not going to draw a lot of amps. Now I'll turn the pressure back up and you'll hear the change in the motor. You hear the change. So now I'm going to start spraying in my bucket right here. Just water. Right there, I saw a viscosity change. If you notice that on the side of the bucket as well. So I don't know if the camera can see, but you'll see two streams on the outer portion of the spray pattern. That's an indicator that we don't have enough pressure. So now you don't see those two patterns, spray patterns. So I'm going to get geared up for protection. And then we'll show you how to spray the Arapido. The speed and efficiency of the application of Arapido comes at an expense, which is you must mask all of your surrounding areas. So you can see that you would want to mask walls 6 to 8 feet if possible, 6 feet. And then what you'd want to do, at least for that first 2 to 3 feet, use paper. Don't just use plastic, because what happens is if the material gets up on the plastic, it's just going to run down and create run marks on the bottom where the paper will absorb the Arapido. So always double protect down here with some paper. You can see I'm all protected here. Now look, it is important to protect yourself. I can't wear a respirator for the purpose of this small demonstration, only because of the camera. But you do want to wear the appropriate type of respirator when spraying. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk over, get the machine going, and start spraying our panel here. So to recap, you've heard me talk about this over and over. Pressure's down. Turn the pressure all the way down. The machine goes on. Now that the machine is running, I'm shooting for that 1800 to 2000 PSI. But keep in mind, more importantly is the spray pattern. So to be honest, I don't even look at the pressure valve. It's more important to what I'm seeing at the end of the nozzle. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to spray a pattern right here on the paper. A little bit higher. And we're ready to start spraying. I don't ever want to spray at an angle. I always want this nozzle face down, directly like this, square with the surface. When I start my spray, I'm starting in the air and I squeeze the trigger. I'm never going to start right here because you'll see that. And when I end my spray path, I'm going to go up in the air and then let off. So those are really important, crucial considerations when spraying. So once again, I'm just going to demonstrate real slow. In the air, when I let off over here, back up in the air. My next pass, I start in the air, back down. Okay, right there you saw that's a clog. So I'm going to walk back over to my bucket here and show you how to get rid of that clog. Turn the nozzle. That's how fast and easy you get rid of the clog. So I'm going to start back over here on the edge, back up in the air again. I'm not going to start right here. Back up in the air. Once you get your confidence, you know, you can spray in different patterns like this, for example. All right, I just finished spraying and now it's time to apply the cast on. So this is where it's a two-person application. For sure, one person spraying, and you need to get the cast on into the wet material. There's a definite technique to how you broadcast this stuff. So I don't want to take a whole big handful and go out over and throw it in the event it clumps. So I'll do it over the bucket and you'll watch. You see how it's just filtering down. Now you don't have the luxury on this product of walking out it in spiked shoes. So you're working simultaneously with your spray partner. So as he or she is spraying, you're following directly behind with the application of the cast on. And you can see no clumps. Now let's say that unfortunately something happens and you get a clump out on a job site. You could have the person that's spraying go back and spray right into that. So in other words, you can erase clumps by spraying material back onto it. Okay, so on half the sample, we just successfully applied the material, and now if you remember, for demonstration purposes, we pigmented it with color fast pewter color. So it's the same technique, we just happen to have color in it. Okay, as we pan down here, it's really up to the individual artisan, and this is where your sampling comes in. So it's not like an epoxy broadcast chip system where you're trying to cover the surface at 100% coverage. One of the unique, interesting factors about this product is you want variation. So you can see demonstrating the neutral versus the pewter. You can see it heavier, lighter, and that's just going to give you kind of a very organic, kind of a modeled appearance. So it just takes practice, but this is one of the unique features about this product. You'll see tomorrow, once it's fully cured, we'll come with a 100 grit resin sand pads, and it'll clean this all up and give it a very interesting look. During the application, if the person that's broadcasting, as I brought up earlier, if they get it too heavy, say they want that organic look, you have the person that's spraying come right back on it then. You remember, you can't just go walk back out on it with spiked shoes because you'll never fill those spikes back up. So if you do see a problem, and I'm not suggesting that this is bad, it's just a heavier application, but for the sake of this video, that was too dark, you come back, and you can lighten it up. Notice what I'm doing. And that quick, we've canceled out how dark it was, and it looks really nice now. It looks kind of like a modeled appearance. So it's that fast and easy to fix areas that you got the application over applied. Although the Arapido has a really excellent pot life, some other considerations to take into account. So you don't want to walk away right now and let the machine just sit here and run for 5 or 10 minutes, because what happens is if you have material in the hopper, the motor is generating heat, and so it could actually flash set the material by doing that. So either turn the machine off, or every minute or two purge it. Just simply get material running through the line. But if you have to stop for 5 or 10 minutes for whatever reason, turn the machine off. All right, we've just finished our spray application of Arapido, and now it's time to consider cleaning the system out. So first thing we do is we have probably, roughly 12 ounces of the Arapido in here. So remember, I'm always going to turn the pressure down, start the machine. I'm going to switch the orifice from the 531 tip to, when you saw it clogging, it's just going to get rid of the material much faster. If I want, I'll turn the pressure up. We're out of material. Good. So you generally want to use at least 2 gallons, preferably 3 gallons of water to clean the system out. This is going to preserve the sprayer. So when you think that you've done a thorough job of cleaning, what you're actually looking for is if you see any foaming, in other words, after you've cleaned with a gallon or 2 and you look into the tank and you see any foaming action, you haven't cleaned it enough. Some of the ingredients in the Arapido actually create that foaming action. So you want to continue to clean the system out until there's no more foaming. We're here the next day after our terrazzi application. Now it's time to vacuum the residual sand off the surface, and then what we're going to do is show you how to put a honeycomb diamond pad on the bottom of the buffing machine, and then we'll just gently sand the entire surface and vacuum it again, and then after that it'll be time for our sealer application. Okay, we just finished vacuuming. As you've seen in previous videos, you have to protect your shoes. You don't want to contaminate the surface during all steps. So I've got the slip-on booties so we don't contaminate our surface. Let's talk about the sanding pads. So we'll come over here. So what we're going to do is take a traditional white buffing pad, and we're going to use a little bit of spray adhesive. Going to spray the pad, spray the backs of these as well. Normally you just give it a minute or so just to kind of glaze over and tack up a little bit. Just let it air out just a bit, and then the last thing I'll do is I'll just put this on the surface this way here and just weight it down. So I might put a bucket or something on there and just let it tack up for about 30 minutes. That way when we turn the buffing machine on, the honeycomb diamond pads won't sling off the surface. And by the way, we found that the 100 grit seems to be the appropriate grit to sand the surface clean, knock any high spots off, and without compromising going down through our product. So 100 grit honeycomb seems to be the best. Our 100 grit honeycomb pads have dried for about 20-25 minutes, and now it's time to sand our surface of our terrazzi application. If you're working in a confined area, perhaps that doesn't have adequate ventilation, go ahead and practice safe working practices. Wear a dust mask. Sometimes you will get a little bit of particulate in the air. We finished sanding the surface. The next step is to vacuum to make sure that surface is nice and clean. All right, we've sanded our surface with a 100 grit resin pad on the bottom of the floor buffing machine. We have seen scenarios where if the artisan that's broadcasting the decorative aggregate broadcasts a heavy amount, you may not get the life out of it that, had you not broadcast as much sand. And in that event, there are different types of diamond tooling, like this metal plug diamond, basically. It's the same way. You just spray adhesive it on. And you want to try a higher grit, maybe start with a 200 grit, do a test sample on a mock-up first, but you'll get better life out of your tooling in the event you have a heavy broadcast application.